Welcome into Real Deal Sports Talk with me, your host, KP. It is Sunday, August 21st, 2016. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your support. We got some stuff to talk about today. I'm coming at you early. Normal show time, 7 p.m. I'm getting at you early today because I got plans tonight. I'm sorry, everybody. I got plans. You know how that happens. You got to do stuff. So I'm going to get at you early, but I'm going to let this run a little bit. Alright, everybody. Welcome in. We got a lot to talk about today. There's always a lot to talk about when it comes to sports. But you know what? We got something big to talk about. If you follow sports, if you follow the MMA game, if you follow the UFC game, last night you definitely tuned in, or you definitely found out what the highlights were after the fight was over to see what had happened in the big bout, the headlining bout of UFC 202, the Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz fight. Now, we've talked about this a few times on the show. I told you guys my opinions. I told you guys what I think of the Diaz boys. I told you what I think of McGregor. And, you know, we're going to talk about that quite a bit on the show today. But when it comes right down to it, last night's fight was probably one of the best fights that the UFC could have hoped for. 5 rounds. Who saw 5 rounds? I didn't see 5 rounds. I didn't see it going 5 rounds. I didn't see both of the fighters looking like they were about to lose it. You know, Diaz got knocked down. McGregor started looking winded. And I told you, with the Diaz boys, when it comes to them, you're going to have to beat them. They are not just going to stop fighting. They are not going to be the guys that you get one over on. And you saw that last night. You saw it by the end of the fight. You saw it throughout the fight. Diaz took everything McGregor had. And sure, he was bleeding, and I think really that's what got McGregor the decision. It didn't come down to more blows or who was more effective or who was the better fighter, honestly. When you go to the card, a big deciding factor in this game is who's more bloody, who's got more damage, who looks like they got beat up more. And it's real similar to domestic violence right now in the NFL. If we have a videotape of you doing it, it's way worse than if we just hear about it and there's a police report. Well, same thing goes when you're talking about fighting now. In fighting, it could have easily gone a draw had neither one of them been bloodied. But Nate Diaz, he was pretty bloody. He was pretty bruised. He took a lot of shots to the face. He is a tough SOB. I don't know how he stood in there and took the punishment he took. If you look at some of the stills, it looks like his face should be rearranged. But it was a great fight. 5 rounds of just tough SOBs going your turn, my turn. Bring it. Toe to toe. And you can't ask for anything more as a fight fan. Now, it would have been great if there was more ground game. I would have liked to see him go to the ground a little more, see if McGregor's ground skills since the first fight improved enough to really match up with Diaz on the ground. We didn't get to see a lot of that. They went toe to toe most of the time. And hey, I'm not going to claim I could have gone out there and taken a beating like that. I know I couldn't have. Forget that. But you watch what those two guys did after all the trash they talked, after everything leading up to this fight. That was a great fight. Personally, I thought it was a draw. All respects to Conor McGregor. He got the win. That's how it'll go down in history. He won the second one, so now we're up for a rubber match. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But you saw 2 fighters last night who really came into the fight not liking each other. And they're not best friends now. They're not going to be buddies. They don't have anything nice to say about each other. But these are 2 guys by the end of that 5-round fight, at the end of those 25 minutes, they had found respect for each other. As far as a man-to-man, you took my best, I took your best. Let's see how it goes. Now, when you see how it goes, it's never going to go your way. You have to take it out of the judge's hands, and Diaz was not able to do that last night. He didn't get him in any really good submission opportunities. But he stood there and he took it and he fought him, just like I said they would. Now, sometime in the future, I'm sure there's going to be a third fight at some point. But right now, you got Diaz. He left the fight last night looking like lumpy face. He looked like Rocky in the first Rocky movie after he fought Apollo Creed. And their faces were just beat up and swollen. That's what Nate Diaz's face looked like last night. He got punched in the face a whole lot, and it swelled up, and he bled some. Conor McGregor left on crutches with most likely what's being reported as a broken foot. So those are two tough guys who just stood there and took a beating. Everybody wants to talk about, I saw Diaz talking, he came to his press conference afterwards with a vape pen. And they're going, oh, he's smoking THC, he's got this vape pen. Well, there's many different kinds of vape pens, first off. Second, I don't think he's going to risk getting suspended right after the fight and being that bolden. So, yes, he had some kind of a vape pen, but we don't know if there was some kind of a illegal substance in Nevada in that pen. Could have been tobacco oil, could have been CBD oil. So leave him alone on that. That's not even a story. The story is how these two men, these two gladiators, these two warriors stood in there last night, toe-to-toe, put on a show for everybody. And gave, for $50 on the pay-per-view, that was worth it. I don't know if you caught this, but Dwight Howard got booed last night when he was recognized by the crowd there. That was kind of funny. The undercard was just as good. It was a great night for the UFC all around. It would have been nice if the Teixeira-Johnson fight went longer than 13 seconds, but who doesn't like a good knockout? 13 seconds is one of the fastest knockouts in UFC history, right there with Conor McGregor's. What was his, 12 seconds? And I think the fastest in MMA history is Ludwig, maybe? Ludwig might have like a 7-second, 8-second knockout, something like that. I'd have to check, but knockouts are great. Knockouts are great. That's what made Mike Tyson famous, Mike Tyson would not have been the big story he was had he not been the knockout specialist we know him as. So, there's another good fight. And I told you guys, they both had knockout power. They both had reach. And it could have gone either way. I expected that fight to go a little longer than it did, 13 seconds. Only Johnson's camp could have really thought, hey, I got a chance to knock this guy out with one punch that fast if I catch him. Good night for the UFC. Good night for the UFC. Let's get into some football. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's move over into Saturday's games. We don't have any games in the NFL today. No preseason Sunday games today as the Olympics wrap up. Kind of scheduled that way, most likely not to interfere with the closing ceremonies. You had the men's basketball game today. You had the finishing of some track and volleyball today. But in the NFL yesterday, we had, 3, 6, 7 games yesterday. So a lot on tap for NFL fans if you like the preseason. A lot of people don't. I'm on record as saying, I'm an addict. Hi, my name's Kyle. I'm a football-aholic. Saturday scores. The Rams pulled one out over Kansas City, 21-20. Todd Gurley got his first touchdown of the preseason, so, they got that going for him. Kansas City, I'm sorry, just like I said last season when I would talk to people about Kansas City, or Carolina for that matter, those are two teams that they don't beat themselves. They're not going to make a lot of plays to beat you, but they're going to be solid on the defensive side of the ball, and they're not going to beat themselves. You're not going to find either one of those teams beating themselves. But you're also not going to find them doing a lot to beat you. They're going to let you make the mistakes. They're going to capitalize it. They're going to play consistent. Low turnover numbers. It's what coaches preach. You get it out of those two teams consistently. Locally, Denver and San Francisco. Wow. I don't know what to tell you, Bronco fans. I know I've told you they're my number 2 team behind the Lions, and that's not going to change. But y'all need a quarterback. Simeon throws a pick 6, and other than that, had a pretty good night. But a pick 6, you can't do that. You can't miss the guy on that read. You can't throw it late and have it picked off like that. And Sanchez, he fumbled it twice within a minute in field goal range both times. And true, maybe he couldn't have done anything about the poor protection and getting just wailed on by San Francisco's defenders, who, for whatever reason, Denver could not block last night. After their starters went out, it was like, hey, look at all the pressure. After Denver's defense started out pretty strong, pretty well, they kind of disappeared. Who lets Christian Ponder come in and run all over the field on him? Which, by the way, he's the third quarterback from the same draft with Colin Kaepernick and Blaine Gabbert on the San Francisco 49ers roster. And he could take Kaepernick's spot. The 49ers, if they're going to make a football decision and not a business decision, here in 2 weeks could go, Kaepernick's not playing. Ponder picked up our system in a matter of days. He's the better backup to Blaine Gabbert. They're more similar. We can keep a consistent system. But then you're looking at cutting Kaepernick, paying him his guaranteed $12 million, and having that count against you for the season. So that's where the business side comes in, and they won't do it because of that. But do they decide to keep a third guy? Do they keep a Christian Ponder as the third quarterback and he's actually the backup? And Kaepernick with his sore shoulder and $12 million rides the pine until they can cut him? Or until he's healthy? Who knows? This situation is just ridiculous at this point. It's unbelievable what's going on in San Francisco, and for some reason that doesn't seem as bad as what's going on with Denver and their quarterback situation. Both teams have bad situations. At least the Broncos have the hope that Paxton Lynch is going to turn into something. And, he had a pretty decent second half, honestly. And, there's calls now for, let's throw Paxton Lynch in the third game. Give him the starting role, see how he does with the ones, because we've seen Sanchez is still going to be Sanchez, and nothing has changed there. And now, we didn't have high hopes on Simeon coming into the season, but now he throw that pick six. Can't have that. Well, it's not like Orlovsky up in Detroit. He's thrown a pick six in both the first preseason games. Simeon had that one bad throw. It comes down to that when you're trying to win a job, though. You heard Mark Sanchez say he thinks he squandered a great opportunity to seize the number one spot. Both of them did. We would be talking completely different about that game had Simeon not thrown a pick six. Simeon doesn't throw a pick six. Sanchez has got 2 fumbles. We're talking about, okay, Simeon starts game 3. Looks like Simeon's going to be the starter. Similar to what people were saying coming into this game. But oh no. No. You got to be perfect to have the support nowadays in the NFL. If you screw up nowadays in the NFL, man, your job's on the line. And I'm sorry, he's unproven. He was a 7th-round pick. There was a reason he was a 7th-round pick. There was a reason Tom Brady was a 7th-round pick, even though he ended up turning into something. It's because the tape wasn't there, the play wasn't there, the skill level wasn't there at the time of the draft. Now, does that mean you can't work hard, you can't get better, you can't find a system that fits you? No. And Tom Brady's proof of that. Other low-round picks or undrafted rookies are proof of that. So the Broncos got this guy, Paxton Lynch. 6'7" rookie. Can throw it all over the field. He can run. But he's coming from a passing system at Memphis, spread system, into a pro-style game. Will he develop fast enough for the defending Super Bowl champions? And I think you got to throw that out the window. Stop worrying about being